The illustration of bakery. In the small town of Hartwood, nestled among hills and serene landscapes, there existed a quaint little bakery run by an old man named Mr. Edwin. His bakery had been the heart of the town for as long as anyone could remember. The aroma of freshly baked breaks and pastries would waft through the streets every morning, guiding the townsfolk to his door. Edwin was not just a baker. He was an artist. His hands, though weathered with age, crafted each loaf of bread with a precision that came from years of experience. Every layer of his cakes was a symphony of flavors, every croissant a delicate masterpiece. His recipes were passed down through generations, but he had infused them with a special touch that could only come from love. However, it was not the baked goods that made the bakery so beloved, but the life lessons that Mr. Edwin offered to everyone who walked through his doors. One chilly morning, a young man named Oliver, who had recently moved to Hartwood, entered the bakery. He had heard tales of Mr. Edwin's legendary baked goods and wanted to experience them for himself. As Oliver ordered a simple loaf of bread, Mr. Edwin observed the worry lines on the young man's face. "You look troubled, lad," Edwin said with a gentle smile, handing Oliver the warm loaf. Oliver hesitated before opening up about the struggles he was facing in his new job, where things weren't going as planned. He felt lost and defeated, like a loaf of bread that had failed to rise. Edwin, understanding the young man's dilemma, invited him to sit down for a cup of tea. "Life," Edwin began as he prepared a batch of dough, "is much like baking. Sometimes, despite doing everything right, the results are not what we expect, but that doesn't mean the process is wasted." Oliver watched as Edwin kneaded the dough with patience and care. "You see," Edwin continued, "baking requires the right ingredients, time, and attention. But even then, some loaves will turn out better than others. The key is in learning from each batch and understanding that failure isn't the end. In fact, it's a lesson in disguise." As Edwin shaped the dough, he explained that life's challenges, much like baking mishaps, could be corrected with a little adjustment and perseverance. He compared the yeast to hope, something small yet vital, which helped everything else rise. Without hope, even the finest ingredients couldn't produce a good loaf. Oliver listened intently, realizing that he had been so focused on his failures that he had forgotten to nurture his hope. As the days passed, Oliver returned to the bakery often, not just for the delicious bread, but for the wisdom Mr. Edwin imparted. Each time, Edwin would share a different analogy between life and baking, teaching Oliver the importance of balance, patience, and resilience. One day, Edwin showed Oliver how to make a perfect batch of croissants, explaining that the layers of dough represented the layers of experience and growth in life. "Every fold," Edwin said, "is a challenge or a triumph, and with each layer, we become more resilient and complex." Oliver found comfort in these teachings and began to apply them to his life. Slowly but surely, his job started improving, and he found himself approaching problems with the same calm and patience that Mr. Edwin showed in the bakery. Years passed, and Oliver eventually became a successful businessman, but he never forgot the lessons he learned in the bakery. Whenever life became overwhelming, he would return to Hartwood, seeking solace in the familiar scent of bread and the calming presence of his old friend. Mr. Edwin, now even older, still worked in his bakery, his hands as steady as ever. One day, as Oliver helped him bake a batch of bread, Edwin smiled and said, "The illustration of this bakery, lad, is not in the bread itself, but in the process of making it." Life, like baking, is about embracing the journey, learning from every rise and fall, and finding joy in the simple things. With those words, Oliver realized that the greatest lesson he had learned was not just about baking, but about living a life filled with purpose, patience, and heart.